This right here used to be a forgotten office, PC, something you'd probably find collecting dust under a desk. I picked it up for just 30 bucks, and what happened next honestly blew my mind. With a few simple upgrades and some creative tweaking, this thing went from barely running Windows to crushing modern games with up to 10 times more FPS. Stick around, because I'm going to show you exactly how I did it and prove every frame of it. On the outside, it looks like just another boring office PC, but trust me, it's even more depressing on the inside. The model I picked up is the Dell Optiplex 9020, one of the oldest survivors still officially supported by Dell. You can find plenty of these lying around on eBay for next to nothing. And to show you exactly why it's so underwhelming, let's take off this side panel and see what's hiding inside. At first glance, there's no hard drive anywhere in sight, just a lonely DVD drive that no one really uses anymore, probably just there to make it look complete. Hidden underneath, there's a single stick of ROM. Let's pull it out and see what we're working with. Oh no, it's only a 4 gig DDR3 stick. That's barely enough for Windows these days. But before we judge it too, the most important thing right now is to make sure it actually boots. I need to test if this old machine still powers on, and if all the parts are even working properly. On the first boot, the fan started spinning, but the monitor showed no display output. I removed the RAM, cleaned the contacts, and reseated it, but still nothing. At this point, I was starting to get a bit nervous, not sure what exactly was causing the issue, so I decided to take off the cooler to check if the CPU was actually working. When I carefully touched the chip to see if it was generating any heat, it stayed completely cold. That pretty much confirmed my suspicion. There's about an 80% chance the problem lies with the CPU. Next, I decided to remove the CPU and clean the contact surface. It's possible that over time, or maybe during shipping, the thermal contact had weakened. Unfortunately, after reinstalling it, the CPU still showed no signs of life. So I tried one last thing, testing it on a different motherboard. Sadly, the result was the same. The chip in question is an old Intel Pentium G3250, released back in 2014. And today it sells for barely $2. So while it's disappointing that it's completely dead, at least it's not a huge loss. Now let's turn our attention to the remaining components. I grabbed another CPU, the Intel Core i5-4590, to test whether the rest of the system was still working. After installing it and saying a little prayer, thank goodness, the PC finally powered on and displayed an image. It even booted straight into the BIOS, correctly recognizing both the CPU and the 4 gigabytes of RAM. Looks like this old PC has been brought back to life once again. Since the original CPU in this system is completely dead, I've decided to upgrade it with an Intel Core i5-4590. This processor was released in the second quarter of 2014, so it's been around for over 9 years now. It features 4 cores and 4 threads with clock speeds ranging from 3.3 to 3.7 gigahertz. While it's certainly not a powerhouse by today's standards, it was one of the top chips for the LGA 1150 back in the day. With a TDP of 84 watts, it also runs fairly cool, even with a basic stock cooler, making it a solid choice for bringing this old system back to life. In addition, I'm upgrading the memory with 2 8GB sticks for a total of 16 gigabytes running at 1600 MHz in dual channel mode. This setup gives roughly a 10% boost in overall performance, compared to single channel operation, especially in games and multitasking. I'm also adding an SSD that already has Windows and a few games pre-installed, so we can jump straight into testing and see how this upgraded system really performs. To make the gaming experience smoother, we'll also need to add a graphics card. For compact pre-built systems like this, space is limited, so a low-profile GPU is really the only practical option. I've prepared an NVIDIA GeForce GT 1030 with 2 gigabytes of VRAM for the upgrade. A small single-fan card that's only about half the height of a standard GPU. With a TDP of just 30 watts, it's perfect for older systems with modest power supplies. In fact, my 250-watt power supply handles the i5-4590 and GT1030 combo just fine. The version I chose uses DDR5 memory, which performs noticeably better than the older DDR3 model, thanks to its higher bandwidth, delivering in some cases several times more performance. Everything's set and ready to go. The system's powered up, drivers are installed, and now it's time for the real test. Let's see how this compact build performs in actual gameplay and whether it can handle some of today's most popular titles. Starting with our first game, Fortnite. At low settings, overall performance is quite stable, averaging around 54 frames per second. While moving or looting, frame rates hover near 50 frames per second, and during close-range fights, they can dip slightly to around 48 with minor frame drops. In long-range battles, it stays steady above 50 frames per second. For casual gaming, this setup delivers a decent and playable experience. Next, we have Valorant, a lighter esports title running at low settings. Frame rate stayed consistently between 65 and 70 FPS, delivering a smooth and enjoyable experience. Even during intense firefights, performance remained steady around 60 frames per second, and while moving around the map, it sometimes climbed past 80. For casual or relaxed gameplay, this setup handles Valorant just fine. Next up is another shooter, but one that's much heavier on graphics, CS2. Running at low settings, this setup delivered an average of around 40 to 50 frames per second. It's not perfectly smooth, but for such old hardware, the components are definitely doing their best in their final years. Despite being nearly a decade old, the system's stability is impressive. Frame rates stayed consistent with no major drops or stutters. This level of performance is fine for casual players or anyone just learning the game. However, if you're planning to play competitive FPS titles, I wouldn't recommend a build like this. The aging hardware simply can't keep up with modern games, and while 40 to 50 frames per second is playable, it's far from ideal. The kind of performance that can get you eliminated before you even react. Next up is the world's most popular game, Minecraft. At an 8-chunk render distance with shaders off, the system managed around 50 frames per second while exploring forest, and stayed between 50 and 60 frames per second when flying over larger areas. During map loading, frames occasionally dropped to 10 to 20 frames per second, but recovered quickly. To really push the limits, I enabled shaders, and that's when both the CPU and GPU hit 100% utilization. Frame rates then dropped into single digits, making gameplay nearly unplayable. This setup is fine for basic, casual Minecraft sessions, especially if you're just making use of existing parts. But if you're looking for smooth performance with high-quality visuals, this configuration definitely isn't the ideal choice. After running through all the upgrades and game tests, it's clear this old system still has some life left in it. With the i5-4590, 16 gigabytes of dual-channel RAM, and the GT1030, we've turned what was once a nearly dead office PC into a capable budget gaming machine. Sure, it won't break any performance records, but for light and casual gaming, it delivers a surprisingly smooth experience. Titles like Valorant, Fortnite, and Minecraft ran well enough to enjoy without frustration, while heavier games like CS2 pushed the limits but remained playable. This build really shows that with a bit of patience and the right upgrades, even decade-old hardware can still serve a purpose. It's not about chasing high FPS or fancy graphics. It's about giving old tech a second chance and having fun doing it. If you enjoyed watching this build come back to life, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts below. What would you upgrade next in this system? The CPU, GPU, or something else entirely? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.